Hello. Welcome again to the BATTASS Podcast, Batman the Animated Series Show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series, or in this case, Batman Beyond. My name is Clay McCormack, and with me, as always, is Sean Murphy. How you doing, Sean?
Good, man. I got nothing.
Great. Excellent. Rounding out the end of the season on a strong, high-energy note. I got to tell you, I feel like we've been doing this season forever. And I think it's because it's twice as long as the first season.
Right.
And so it just feels like it's just been a much longer road. And also the episodes we haven't been like crazy about.
Yeah, I've canceled a few times on you too, so I've been probably responsible for the lagging.
That's all right. It's not that big. The stretches are, we've only missed a couple weeks here and there, so it's not that bad.
Right.
But today we are talking about the final two episodes of season 2 of Batman Beyond, which I think, fortunately, at least for me, I can say I think it goes out on a pretty high note. We'll be doing Where's Terry and Ace in the Hole, and so we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back with Where's Terry. Okay, Where's Terry? Written by Rich Fogel, directed by Yukio Suzuki, and in this one, Shriek traps Batman in the abandoned tunnels beneath Neo Gotham, intent on revenge, and Bruce must ally with Max to find him. Before we get into this, I do want to say one of the things that was frustrating for me is that we've been watching these episodes and we've been kind of middling on a lot of them. And, you know, we've been kind of, I don't know, feeling like the spark isn't there the way it was in the previous series. And I just happened to be watching, I was jumping back through a bit of Beware the Gray Ghost.
Yeah.
And I don't think I've watched any TAS stuff since we finished doing that series. And boy, it is night and day.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but TAS is just a completely different animal.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably rewatch TAS once a year. I'll have it on in the background while I'm working. So yeah, it's really hard to go through these Beyond episodes. And I know there's a whole generation of people that love this stuff, so I hate to, you know, slaughter the fatted holy cow or whatever. But I just think it's just not as good, just academically speaking. Full stop, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I was just scrubbing through a bit of Gray Ghost, and just the color work alone in that episode is like the Batman Beyond stuff is fine, but like I think when they changed the animation style, it made everything just so much colder and more sterile.
Yeah.
And so the colors tend to kind of feel that way too, where it's like there's nothing bad about the coloring, but it's just not really it just doesn't really feel that expressive.
Yeah.
Whereas Gray Ghost is just like, it's amazing. It's the black and white stuff, the regular Gotham color stuff, the firelit Batman stuff. It all looks fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like it's so streamlined in Batman Beyond that there's something about when you're experimenting, you get the good stuff. You know, you take big swings, you have some misses, but I think when any creative endeavor starts running like a well-oiled machine, and you know, when this series was done, they've been doing these episodes for years. They just got so efficient at it that it just feels like it's much quicker, and I don't know. It's like, you know, when your favorite band releases their big first album, you're all excited because it's new, and then maybe the second one's pretty good. But, you know, after 15 years, it's really hard for them to come up with something really mind-blowing, you know?
Yeah.
There's something about efficiency, and by habit, they're doing it over and over, and maybe that's why TAS was so good, just because they were still finding themselves, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, they've been this more or less the same team has been making Batman cartoons for 8 years at this point. I think this is 2000 when this episode comes out.
Yeah.
And TAS started in 92. And so, yeah, I mean, if you're just kind of doing the same thing, I feel like the thing that we're feeling in this season especially is there seems to be a lot more of a formula that you can see easier. Even in the ones that are a little bit more inventive, I feel like you can still feel that formula where it's like they try to tell a little bit of an interesting story, but they can only get as much as they can get inside the small chunk they have that goes between big action sequences, you know?
Yeah. Like, I'll be honest, with the next episode, I really loved it, but I didn't care about the big mutant dog scene. I don't think that was worth it.
Right. Yeah.
It's distracting. It's like it became really goofy when you really had what could have been like a Heart of Ice level story.
Oh, definitely.
But
yeah.
I don't mean to.
And this one too. No, I think this one too is interesting because I thought this was definitely one of the better episodes that we'd watched this season.
Yeah.
And I think what the reason that it is, the reason that is not because of like the plot stuff, because the plot stuff isn't really interesting, but the little character moments you get throughout the episode are fantastic. Like the stuff with Terry and the kid is decent, but the stuff with Max and Bruce is fantastic. I loved all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the strongest bit of that. And you know, I think you and I were opining for an episode where Bruce and Max have to work together, and I think you pointed out that this one was on its way. I kind of wish they had done this one a little bit sooner.
Yeah, but the the scenes they share are great. I mean, there's nothing more. This is a good Bruce and Max episode, but it's also might be the best straight up Bruce episode of the series so far, because even though he's older, he's still just as you get to see he's still as wily as he has ever been, whether it's the interrogation sequence or the bit where it looks like he's going to trust Max and then he just uses her as bait so he can slip down the tunnel, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah, I guess I expected this episode to end with the two of them burying the hatchet. And instead he lies to Terry and says, "Yeah, we worked it out. Look, I had her arrested." Yeah. And you assume he'll
great.
Get her out of jail and they'll all have a laugh about it later, but they don't show you that.
Right.
It took an unexpected twist at the end.
Yeah, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great way to end it, to keep their relationship still on the edge. I thought it was very good.
Yeah.
I think the most unrealistic thing about this is that Bruce Wayne has a subway card, because I don't know on what planet Bruce Wayne would ever have like a Metro Pass.
Yeah. The next episode bugs me because Bruce goes to a chiropractor, and chiropractor is not science.
We just lost a huge contingent of our listenership. Were you surprised to see Shriek in this episode?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, I was surprised, and I also, honestly, I don't know why he was there. Like I maybe I missed like the one line of dialogue where they explain what he's doing in the subway, but at the end of the episode, I was just thinking like, what the hell is why was Shriek there? What was he doing?
Right. Yeah, like it could have been the bad guy could have been the tease, the gang.
Sure. Yeah.
Why
I don't
they
know.
called
Maybe he gets just stuck down there. We looked this up before. T gang.
And was Shriek's assistant someone that had splicing done?
He looked like it, yes.
Okay.
The T's are... what's that? Maybe not. I guess there's no real... I don't know. There might be some explanation, but I can't seem to find it quickly enough for it to not bore everybody. Just says, T's are a street gang and longtime enemies of the Jokers. All the members color their skin white except for their faces, which are colored red in the shape of a capital letter T, which is where they get their name from. So that's it. They look. Right. They actually look a lot like. It's the same design as the. I can't remember what year he got the redesign, but the character Mr. Terrific.
Yeah.
but I do not think that they are related to Mr. Terrific in any way. But did he show up? He looks like he showed up on the animated series at some point, but just generally, he's got this.
When
I'll send you a picture if you're interested.
when I did Beyond the White Knight, I had the Azrael gang sort of use this look. They have their faces painted like the red part of Azrael's mask.
Right, yeah.
And it was sort of a nod to this gang, which I didn't really have much context for. But I don't think I linked them enough for most people did not catch it at all when they were reading Volume 3.
Should have been a big red A. But yeah,
You just sent me? Oh yeah, the T on his face.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Mr. Terrific, yeah.
Mr. Terrific, why does he have a fair play jacket on?
That's just always been his thing. I'm not really sure what the etymology of that is, but like his original costume, he wore this big thing on his chest that said fair play. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that's just he's just a stickler for the rules, I guess.
I guess so, yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Did we get any context on this kid that was in the subway?
No. The only bit of context that you kind of get, that you kind of have to do the legwork on in your own brain, is that I think he's a rich kid based on his name, which is like Darius something like a big, long rich kid name. But aside from that, it doesn't sound like I don't think we get any background on him or where he's off to afterwards or what.
Why do you think rich people name their kids longer names?
It's just a history. Let's put it this way. I knew someone in college who was like a crust punk, gutter punk type kid.
Yeah.
And he had an abbreviated name, like a short kind of cool name with letters. And I'm not going to say what it is because I don't want to blow up a spot. But I always thought, oh, that's a interesting name. And then someone explained to me that no, his name is this much longer, like old money English name, and that his family is rich and like lived, had a lot of land in New Jersey or something. And I was like, okay,
right. When I moved into this neighborhood I live in Portland, it's basically like all these old mansions and captains' houses and bankers built them back in the day. It's probably one of the most valuable neighborhoods in the entire state. And my neighbor's name is Constance Bloomfield.
Yeah, there you go.
And it sounds like a name you'd make up for like the evil woman across the street. And I'll say for the most part, she totally is named correctly. She's ratting on me when I'm doing work for the Historic Society, like making sure I'm following code and just making it hard for me to get stuff done. And she's just like a little arrogant. And please don't contact her, anybody.
That definitely is the name of a villain from a YA novel, I think.
Yeah, it was either that or Cruella de Vil.
Yeah. But yeah, what do you think about the use of Shriek? Do you think they just picked a villain out of a hat here?
The more that we talk about this episode, the less I like it. Yeah. Because I don't think it just feels a little bit lazy. Like the concept is cool. Batman's missing, and Terry and Bruce and Max have to work together. Like that's great, but we don't get any context for this kid. We don't know who the T's are. Suddenly, Shriek is thrown in for no reason. I don't know, man. I think like the concept didn't follow through to the end product.
Yeah, I think it could be a bit stronger if they took Shriek out of it and just had it be about Terry and the kid trying to escape and Max and Bruce having to work together to find him. I don't know if you need the villain of it all, It's funny because as I was watching this, seeing Shriek and the way he was used, I couldn't help but think of the Red Hood book that we did, where we use Shriek in kind of a similar manner, but in our book, the whole point was that Shriek specifically wasn't doing anything, and Gan just blows up his spot and like forces him to act. Yeah. Whereas in this one, he's down there doing something. I'm not really sure what it is, and then he just kind of gets arrested at the end. Yeah. They do have that one cool shot though, where he does the sound wave thing like around four corners, which looked really cool.
Yeah.
But aside from that, he was kind of a waste of a character. And I like Shriek.
Yeah.
I wish they did. I guess this is his last appearance until he shows up in an episode of Justice League briefly, I think.
Oh. I wish this episode didn't have Terry in it. I think he should have just been missing. And then we follow Bruce and Max the whole time, and we learn.
Yeah.
He's like teaching her. Like, I want way more of that. Like, telling me that Terry's hanging out with this runaway kid in the sewer and hitting all these dead ends. Like, I don't care about that. Especially
Right,
because you
yeah.
haven't even bothered to explain to me who this kid is or why he's important. And then tossing Shriek in there. It's like, I don't care about any of this. Get back to Bruce and Max. Like, that's your
Right.
episode. But I can see the
Yeah.
suits going like, I don't know. The kids really want to see Terry and Batman.
Well, it's funny because I think in TAS, this would have just been Bruce. If this was a TAS episode, I think this would have just been Bruce and Max the whole time.
Yeah.
I think they would have stuck to the guns and just focused on the two of them trying to find Terry. Because that's like the tension of the episode, right? It's like, what the hell happened to him? Nobody knows where he is. This subway tunnel is collapsing or whatever. They have to find him. It's good stuff. Like they have all this room to do some of these great character bits. Like one of my favorite bits of animation I think I've seen on the show is when Max and Bruce are in the subway and the T's walk by in the background and you see Bruce like clutch his cane closer to his chest like he's worried about these guys. And it's a little bit of visual storytelling that I kind of feel like they don't do that much on this show anymore. And I really, really liked it. It was a really nice little detail.
Yeah, I didn't notice that one. Yeah. Ah, man, I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah, I think it's a tough one because I think it's almost great. There's great stuff in it, but I agree. I think the episode is Max and Bruce, and I think you could definitely get away with just focusing on them.
Yeah. Oh, man, I was gonna say 4, but now I'm at a 3.
Yeah, I was too. I was thinking 4 as well. Yeah, I think I'm probably gonna go 3. If I'm gonna be a cheapskate and say high 3, not that we write these down anywhere or anything, but
I want these to be 4s. Like, I don't want to be cheap with my view. Like, I'm willing to forgive a lot in order to get a 4 out of one of these. I definitely would love to draw Terry in the subway. Like, I really like drawing caverns and underground tunnels, especially if you have like a water element, like a waterfall or like a big ravine or cavernous plummet pipes and stuff. I don't know why. I just really love that stuff. I think I just like the narrow scope of those set pieces, you know?
Yeah. No rulers necessary for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, drawing water is kind of a bitch, but I drew so much of it in the wake that I kind of got through my water training, I guess you'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, that stuff is tough. I know we've talked about it before, but there's so many different elements to it.
Yeah.
That in different parts of the water and the way that it hits and the way that it moves, that it can be very, very difficult to figure out exactly how you want to illustrate it.
Yeah. You know, I was inking some rocks and boulders recently, and I've been inking them the same way forever. Like, I don't think I've really looked at photo references of rocks, cliffs, or anything for a long time. I just have this distinct way. I sort of use a dry brush and I'll use some Pro-Quill to make it look like one of these rocks was beat with a bat, so there's like dents in it and stuff. And then I'll do like a layer of fingerprints on them and add some trees around it or whatever. And like that's the Sean Murphy rock. And I was trying to think of ways to like make them better. Like, man, maybe I should start, referencing rocks and stuff more. I've been playing this cheap game with rocks for years now. And a buddy of mine was looking at my work and he's like, "No, man, people love your rocks." I go, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, well, you're not wrong, but like you can recognize the Sean Murphy page just by looking at the rock." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess that it makes my life easier."
Yeah, you just do a book that's I don't know, takes place in the desert in a way that's the only setting, so you'd have to find a way to redefine the different kinds of rocks.
Yeah, it's true.
Just to stop yourself from going nuts.
Like I had a quick cactus tree that I would be able to draw very easily. And if I'm doing like a quick one panel flashback to a desert, I can just throw in whatever, it's a fucking cactus. But when I'm doing Zorro now, and it's a book that takes place in the desert, so I'm like,
Yeah.
fine, I'll look up different types of cacti and make sure they look better.
Yeah, do something that takes place on like an English beach, one of those beaches that's just all rocks.
Yeah.
Or like Portland. Yeah, Portland's got a lot of those beaches. Like
Yeah.
just 5 different kinds, 10 different kinds of rocks all smushed together against like some dirt and stuff.
You have a trick
That
for
sounds
your
like
rocks?
a great book. Not really. I feel like every time I draw rocks, I think I have a trick, and then I realize I don't, and I end up looking up some sort of reference. Most of my tricks for rocks are just where the light source hits.
Yeah.
So if I've got some rocks on the ground, I just go, all right, black out the back of it, put a couple little spots on it so it looks like there's cracks or something, and then kind of go about my day.
Yeah.
Rocks are always one of those things where when I rough in the shapes, afterwards I realize that this is not what an earth rock looks like.
Right.
Look, for whatever reason, it always like the way it points out feels weird or like doesn't make any sense. So I always end up having to think about my rocks more than I would like to.
Another podcast, people are going to find where people talk about rocks in this detail. Comics. This is amazing.
That's how thrilled we are with these episodes of what the hell are we watching here? Batman?
Star Trek. Yeah.
Yeah, that too.
Oh man.
I was talking to Wes about this show, and he said about putting up the next one or getting close to the end of the season or something. And he said, yeah, I can tell you guys aren't really liking the season by how quickly you guys diverge into something else.
Oh, does he listen to all these?
I think he listens to a bunch of them. I don't know if he listens all the way through or just kind of like skips through when he's putting them up or whatever.
I'm impressed, man. I mean, maybe he wants to make sure we're not running like a YouTube sex ring or something on his channel.
I don't think the views are high enough for that to be the case. But you said you wanted to draw the tunnel, right?
Yeah, the tunnel water type stuff.
What the hell would I want to draw? I actually really like that scene where Bruce and Max go up against the T-Gang.
Yeah.
I really like the way that it plays out because Bruce goes in by himself and you kind of have this feeling that, oh, well, he's Bruce Wayne. Obviously, he's going to beat the shit out of these guys. Mm-hmm. But then they get the jump on him, which requires Max to come in and help him out. But then he puts on the Batman jets at the end and interrogates the guy. But I think that there's some nice, fun storytelling you could do in there as far as that whole sequence. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's a good answer too, actually. Forgot about that scene.
Either that or his limo doesn't really show up in this episode. Every time I can't get over that limo that just looks like it has a big glowing ball sack on the front of it. Even though I know it's the Batmobile flipped upside down, basically, but there's just something about it that feels very strange to me.
Oh, I never noticed it. Yeah. You might have ruined it for me now. I love when a lot of these cars come to a screeching halt. You'll hear tire noises, but they're all floating.
Yeah, even though they're floating over cars.
Yeah. It happens in the next episode, too, when Ace smacks into a car.
You know, it's funny how that stuff registers, but it doesn't register, and how it would feel weird if the sound wasn't there. Like I remember listening to the commentary on The Simpsons. Well, I can't remember what episode it was, but Matt Groening was talking about how every time they cut to an exterior shot of the nuclear power plant, there's a crow noise that they make there's just a bird noise in the background of a crow. Mm-hmm. And he said the first time that they did it, there were two crows in a row. So it was like a caw, caw. And he was like, no, that's too many. Just take one of them out so it's just one crow.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, it's like, yeah, 2 crows sounds weird, but 1 crow sounds right for this completely arbitrary exterior shot of the nuclear power plant. It's just so interesting how this stuff lands with the ear and the eye, depending on what it is.
I bet sound design is one of the most unappreciated art forms in entertainment.
Oh,
I'll bet sound designers get fucked up after work complaining about people not appreciating how hard it is to do their job,
Yeah. Yeah, I bet.
It's one of those things where if it's done right, you're not supposed to notice it at all. Or
Exactly.
people
Yeah.
think that you just record and whatever bird sounds are in the forest, that's what makes it onto film. They don't think about the fact that you have to redo almost literally every single sound in the entire film.
Yep.
Like you only notice it when it's wrong.
Right. Yeah. I imagine like the sound guys get together and they talk about how whoever's working on like the Quiet Place movies are a bunch of hacks because like it's so at the forefront. It's like that doesn't take any talent. All you get, that's the whole movie.
Yeah.
The real talent is guys like us who go out and record animal sounds that we then slow down to 1/4 speed to make a new way of having a door creak open in the background.
Right.
You know, that's the real shit.
When I was my first year in college, I was at Mass Art, and I was an animation major because I had to pick something. And Flash wasn't around yet, so we were using a program called Director, and
Mm-hmm.
it was really bad, low key. And I was making these cartoons, these animations or whatever, and I would just use my own voice in a microphone, and you could like speed it up, slow it down, chop it up. I mean, and it's amazing what the human voice can do. Like I got pretty decent sounding machine guns just playing with my own voice. Like, and
Nice.
I'm not the guy from Police Academy, but you know what I mean? Like just tweaking it in a very simple program, you can get a ton of different sounds. Just yeah.
Did your teacher ever come over and tell you that you had a problem with your bleeps, your sweeps, and your creeps?
Oh
Yeah.
man, good one. The what? The what? And the what?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the behind the scenes stuff of how Ben Burt, I believe it was, recorded the sounds for Star Wars?
No.
All those iconic noises. It's wild because it's like he would go out and just record the strangest things. Like I think I don't know if it's the sound of the door opening or one of the blaster hits, or maybe it's the lightsaber powering up,
Yeah.
is like the sound of a heated up frying pan touching cold water.
Uh,
And so he just puts a microphone in there and you get that really weird like squeaky hiss noise
yeah.
that comes when, you touch those two things together. Or I know there's one that was like
Yeah.
the sound of a vibrating telephone wire or
Right.
something like that. It's crazy when you get these guys who actually,
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of them do it, but they go out there and just create these sounds for things using things that you would not even believe.
Totally. I remember I saw something that they used for gun blast noises back in the 70s and 80s. They used to use like some kind of a boom tube um, echo thing. I don't know exactly how they did it, but it made the sound. You would all know it. I'm going to do a bad impression right now, but it was just like, "Jow, jow." Like every
Oh,
gun
sure.
basically
I know what you're
sounded that
talking
way.
about.
Any
Yeah.
deflected thing from He-Man sounded, it's like the same sound effect. And there was a specific type boom tube that they would use for that. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's wild though. Some of the like crinkled paper somehow sounds like cutting meat and things that you never would put
Mm-hmm.
together.
Yeah. It's always, I love the bones breaking is like snapping celery in half
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's shit like that.
Yeah.
So
It's
there's,
very fascinating.
this comedian, Brian Regan?
Yes, I do.
So he did a bit about golf shows are so quiet, but one of the viewers realized they were piping in fake bird noises, and he heard a bird noise that was not indigenous to that part of Georgia that year at all, and he wrote in
Nice.
an angry letter to the station or made an angry phone call. And he did this whole bit about what it was like to be the operator, like getting this phone call. If you just Google Brian Regan bird noise, whatever, you might find it. I can't do it justice, but it is hilarious.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Sound design, very important. Very
Yeah,
underrated.
huge.
Shriek, Shriek would enjoy that we're talking about sound design more than
Yeah.
we're talking about his contribution to this episode.
I still don't understand why he looks like he's high. He looks like he OD'd or something with the bags under
He
his eyes.
does. He
Something.
does. He looks like he's a really tired stoner. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of late nights playing with, gigahertz and megahertz and whatever,
Mm-hmm.
chasing that dragon.
Yeah. Not to pat myself on the back, but one of the details that I wrote into Red Hood that I thought was very clever, because Shriek is a sound-based villain, obviously, and which is very difficult to do in a comic book medium. So the sound effect that I wrote in for his blasters was a drawn-out OHMS, which is a sound term. I'm not exactly sure what it's on the back of all my amplifiers, but it's a sound term that stands for. You know what? I may as well look it up if I'm talking about it.
Yeah, I'm big shot. You want to pat yourself on the back? Let's go all the way.
It's a measurement of resistance between 2 points of a conductor when a constant potential difference of 1 volt is applied to those points and a current of 1 ampere is produced. In simpler terms, it's the equivalent of 1 volt per 1 ampere. So I don't know what any of that means, but it's a unit of electrical resistance in the International System of Units. So it might not even be a sound thing. It's probably just an electrical thing. But since I've seen it constantly on the back of every amplifier that I've ever owned, I figured that would be a great sound to use for him, because what does Shriek's blaster sound like in the comic book world?
I would have been lazy and just written SOUNDDDDDDDD. But with a really cool font.
Yeah, that would work too. Yeah. Just like loud LOOOOUD.
It's funny. Some of the when you're making sound effects, usually you're doing it at the end of the issue while you're wrapping up. You're like, all right, we got guns going off. How many times can I use bang? What does the machine gun sound? How do I get like into a comic book? And it's funny. Again, it's sort of like the sound design of comics, because I don't think anyone actually reads what the sound effect is. Their brain just registered that there is a sound going off, and they move on, which is probably great. But yeah, like I was trying to explain sound effects to my wife, and I sounded like an idiot. I don't know if there's really like a science to it.
Yeah, it's strange, because you have to think about like what the sound you want is, and it's like, okay, I want crack, but I want something a little bit more like harder edged. How do I get that? What if instead of the C I use a K? Yep. And instead of the second C, I use another A, so it's KRAAK.
Yeah.
There we go. That gets it.
And the letter K is a nice pointy letter, so it adds to the angularity. And there's a reason why, for me, I'll get rid of CK, just go with double Ks instead.
Yeah.
So it's little dumb things like that. Like, I don't know if anyone really pays attention, but yeah. Yeah, I used to do. I had a guy pour a cup of coffee once in Batman, and the sound effect is COFFEE, but really like a slinky type design coming out of the coffee cup. And I don't think anyone ever really noticed it, but I don't know. I find that stuff really fun, because it's like, I take this job very seriously. Sometimes I don't,
Well, there's certain places, right, where like the word punt sounds like a sound effect. It sounds like an onomatopoeia. Is that what the word is? Onomatopoeia?
Yeah.
So like I've seen you do that where somebody kicks something and you write in punt or something like that.
Yeah, I've written punch next to someone getting punched.
Yeah, why not? It sounds like a sound effect as much as it sounds like an action. Why not?
I've seen in a comic once, there was a character clicking a gun, and the artist drew out in really cool font, "Click it a pistol." But it worked really well. This was Andrew Robinson, who's a genius. Like, click dash of dash da dash pistol with no L. And it was like,
nice.
It fit the style of the comic so well. I'm like, God, man, that's brilliant.
That's the thing, though, right? It just needs to match the style of the tone of what you do, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't need
and the beauty is, I love stuff that comics can do that no other medium can. And that is one of them right there, playing with sound effects.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
You know what? I'm surprised we got such a deep topic of discussion based off this episode.
We got to find something in the gunt of season 2 of Batman Beyond.
Gunt would be a good sound effect.
It would be a great sound effect.
Like when you kick a fat woman between the legs.
Or, just anybody in the stomach.
Don't dodge my offensive joke.
Yeah, I'm just letting it hang. Anyway, I think we're done with this episode. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll be back with Ace in the Hole. Okay, Ace in the Hole. Written by Hilary J. Bader, directed by James Tucker, and in this one, when Ace goes missing, Bruce remembers the origin of his pet canine. Terry discovers an underground dog fighting organization. Note, this episode, while officially part of Season 3, was released as part of the Season 2 DVD box set. Interesting. I didn't know that. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Screwing up our whole shit here. Anyway, I thought this episode was great. I agree with what you said earlier. I do think that, like, the giant monster dog at the end is probably a bit much, but aside from that, the actual story they're telling I thought was very good.
Yeah. Honestly, I would draw this whole episode.
Yeah.
There isn't a single moment except for the end where, there's so much great stuff happening here. You could almost do it silently, without any more balloon. The whole issue, just awesome
definitely.
Sound effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, you add in the snow and Christmas and all that. It's funny, when I looked this episode up, and it describes how Bruce met Ace, and it says Bruce goes to Crime Alley to give his parents flowers and is attacked by a Joker or something. And I'm like, whoa, this is a flashback to where Bruce is still Batman and Joker makes an appearance? Like, this is awesome. And that's not what the episode was at all.
No, he gets...
It was just a clown from the theater who decided to attack Bruce.
Just jumped by a rogue Pagliacci.
Yeah, you got to watch out for those guys, man.
Yeah.
I was rewatching Seinfeld recently, and there was another rogue Pagliacci in that one, too, that was like ninja kicking.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember that one, yeah. I think this is really good. I'm curious what happened to... Bruce's driver from that era. Apparently he didn't stick around too long. That it did catch me off guard, because to see someone who wasn't Terry or Alfred driving the car was strange. So obviously they're in this period of time where Alfred has, I assume, died.
You know what? I would have made it Bruce driving himself alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess there's really no reason to have that driver, right?
No. Bruce can still drive. Yeah, I think it's stronger if he drove himself at that moment. I mean, when the driver locks the doors because he's afraid, like, I get that's an interesting indicator of Crime Alley, but it just added some confusion. Like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, that seat in that car is reserved for 2 people only, and you ain't one of them.
Well, see, now it's a perfect opportunity to bring back the Bruce's driver as a villain somewhere down the line, where he has some didn't get his full Christmas bonus or something one year, and he went insane and became a Batman villain.
If Bruce fires somebody, what do you think his reason usually is?
I feel like as he gets older, people are probably quitting more than he's firing them.
That's fair.
I feel like, because, I'm assuming everybody who is after Alfred, he is just comparing to Alfred, and that's an impossibly high standard to live up to. So they're probably just cutting their losses and
yeah. Imagine Bruce having to replace Alfred. Like, go and hire a new dad.
Yeah.
Talk about an
a younger
battle.
Dad.
Yeah. Like, dad that's younger than you. It's not as good as the old dad. Wasn't there to take care. Yeah, talk about a thankless job.
Yeah, especially in the future, where I'm sure the concept of the butler probably is well out of date.
It's probably a little antiquated and a little racist, maybe, you could argue.
Yeah, depending on a few factors, probably, sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought this one was really good. I would say this is probably the best episode of the season, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt.
Now, is it cheating, though? Because, I mean, come on, it's a dog getting zapped and beat up and then getting revenge. I feel like it's almost cheating. Like, how do you do that episode and not have people go, oh my God, it was so good.
Yeah.
It was so good. Ace, it was so heartbreaking what happened to Ace. Like, yeah, of course, he's a fucking dog.
Yeah, I mean, any kind of story you do about Ace, especially when he's a cute little puppy, is gonna be a slam
Yes.
dunk. But I
Yeah.
think that the idea of him being used in dog fighting, and him having crossed paths with this guy over and over the years is kind of
Hmm.
interesting. That's a little above and beyond what I would have thought they would have done. Um, Especially when the guy gets Ace back third time, he's like, "No, man, you and I are destined for each other," or something like that.
Hmm.
Um, Mr. Boxer, whatever.
Hmm. Yeah, it's I think it's I don't think it's too much cheating. I think they tell a good story. I think it's
Yeah,
driven by Ace, which is good. Um the only thing that I found kind of strange. How did you feel about Bruce being like, "Don't worry about Ace, he'll be fine"? Cuz I I couldn't decide if I don't know. He seemed pretty concerned, but he also didn't seem concerned at all. So I wasn't really sure how to take it.
I think Bruce was lying to himself because he didn't want to
Yeah.
believe Ace is in trouble. But I think that they could have given that more context. You know,
Yeah.
Terry could have said, I know you're pretending that he's fine, but I know you're worried about him. Something like that.
Yeah. I could see Bruce putting up a front being like, "Do you think I would have a dog who couldn't take care of himself on the street?
Right.
He's back. If he could fit in that Batman suit, I'd put it on him, you son of a bitch."
Right. Or it could be a metaphor of Ace getting older and not being as capable as he once was. Yada yada
Hmm.
yada.
No, now that's the unfair episode. Not only is it about Ace getting
Yeah.
zapped and tortured, but he's like on his last legs.
Yeah. Yeah. I also didn't like Terry being swallowed by the dog and then being regurgitated when Ace
Yeah, that
jumps
was
on
kind
him.
of weird. Yeah.
I mean,
I
it
I
just
really
felt like
liked.
the suits were like, we need a big action piece here, guys. This is a kid's
Yeah.
show. And I think that's when they're talking down to the audience.
Yeah, I think the better what's the word? The better conclusion would be something similar to that Robin episode from TAS, but
Yeah,
with Ace in the Robin position, where it's like basically you don't know if Ace is going to kill this guy,
right.
and he backs him up to the ledge or whatever, and Terry has to try and talk him down or whatever it is. But just putting it back on Ace and his story instead of this ridiculous gigantic. Honestly, you know what I just kept thinking? Have you are you watching the newest season of What We Do in the Shadows?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, I won't go too far into it, but uh, what I couldn't help thinking as I was watching this episode was, what the hell are they going to do with these giant mutant dogs? Are they going to have to put all these dogs down? Like, what do you do with this 25-foot HGH juiced up dog?
Yeah. You you break it up into a cement mixer and serve it to pigs.
I I guess I don't know, but it's very sad. Either
Yeah.
however you look at it, I just kept thinking about how awful it was for these fictional cartoon dogs.
I do like that they went back to the stacked deck bar.
Yes,
That's a
yeah.
total throwback to TAS, of course.
Hmm. I like that they were doing dog fighting in an abandoned Gotham Gardens arena,
Hmm.
because my first thought was, oh, I didn't realize that they could just do this in such a reputable place. But once they went inside, it clearly hadn't been used in a while.
Yeah, it was like an abandoned wrestling. I bet you got all
Yeah, and
excited
they
for
were.
that part.
Well, no, there was no ropes, so and it was dogs, not humans.
Yeah.
I thought the dog animation was great. I thought the animation on Ace was really good.
Yeah.
I loved the scene where he jumps up onto the glass and like kind of onto the big bubble to save Terry.
Yeah, he looked a little
Kind of
human.
scrambles his way.
Yeah, he like used his thumbs and grabbed the edge.
Yeah, yeah. He just grabs the edge of the lip with his dog paws.
Yeah.
But
Or
yeah,
what sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna ask you what you were gonna rate this one.
Um,
At least a
jeez,
4.
it's at least a 4. I don't know if it's a 5. I think it's probably a Batman Beyond 5. but I don't know if it's
Yeah.
Paul Dini, Bruce Timm universe 5 as a whole. You know what I mean?
It's no Paul Dini joint.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's missing just a little bit of magic to really put it over the edge for me, I think.
Yeah. I think a Beyond 5 is a good way to describe it. In fact, I wish we had come up with that handicapped rating system earlier, because I think we would have gotten more 4s and 5s this whole time, but we're comparing it to Heart of Ice.
It honestly, that's something Wes and I go back and forth on a lot, because when I rate the Star Trek episodes, I end up rating them not on a hard and fast scale. Like it ends up being like, okay, is this a 5 for a Voyager episode versus is this Voyager episode a 5 compared to
Yeah.
the best of the entire franchise, you know?
Yeah.
Whereas he does it a lot more, tries to do it a lot more objectively as a whole. But it's tough because I feel like if you're getting into a lesser series, whether it's, you know, quote unquote lesser, whether it's this or like Enterprise or something, I feel like you kind of have to slide your scale a little bit, so you're just not coming out disgruntled every week.
Yeah. I think that would be more interesting for readers too. If every rating at the end is a 3 over and over and over, that's just not as fun, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's most of my ratings of season 3 of Voyager, I think, is
Yeah.
threes.
Yeah, hang in there, man.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're coming around. I think we're in the back half of season 3. This is another one where I feel like we've been doing this forever, but we got broken up. We've been doing Deadwood as well, and we got slowed down by Picard. Slowed us down quite a bit. But we're back into it now. So I think we're coming up to the end of season 3. So
The Strange
the Borg
New World
season. Have showed up.
Oh, yeah, I got to that episode. See, the Strange New World stuff has been pretty good this season.
Oh, has it?
Yeah.
We haven't done that.
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by a few of the episodes, but I don't want to go on
Nice.
in and vouch for it. It might be mistaken.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to catching the Lower Decks crossover.
Oh, yeah.
Because that seemed like it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. When is that out? Is that out yet?
Yeah, the whole season's already over, I think.
Okay. Yeah, my friend listens to Critical Role. One of the actors is in it, so he was talking about
Oh, nice.
how they had to sew her sleeves up permanently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in the cartoon, her sleeves are rolled up all the time, and for continuity's sake, when you film live action, they didn't want you to just roll your sleeves up. They sewed the costume so the sleeves would always look the same as they were rolled up, just for continuity. So I thought that makes a lot of sense to put it that way, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Huh.
So do you have anything else you want to say about Ace in the Hole?
Nope.
It's weird because I feel like we talked a bit more about the last one, but this one is a better episode, but we didn't quite have as much to say. What would you want to draw from this?
Honestly, the whole thing up until the stupid dog.
That's right. You said that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually wouldn't mind. I think in a vacuum, drawing the fight with the giant dog would be pretty fun. But I would like to do that as something separate from this story, because I don't think this story needs a giant dog.
We talk about how chiropractors are full of shit, not real doctors.
Save it for Patreon.
Okay.
So what are your thoughts on season 2 as a whole? Now that we've finished up season 2.
Yeah, a lot of 3s. You know.
Yeah.
Uh.
Yeah. Everything seems kind of down the middle. Fine.
Yeah.
Nothing really setting us on fire. I wish that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I keep the ones that excited me the most were the ones that had kernels of really good ideas, even regardless of whether or not they followed through. And I think the fact that they didn't follow through in a lot of them made the season that much more frustrating.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I feel that way a lot. And I feel like you've been saying that a lot about Voyager podcast. You're not wrong. Yeah, it's like you want to give something higher points because there's a kernel of a great idea there, but when they drop the ball on it, it's almost like you want to deduct it, you know?
Yeah. Do you feel like this season is because we've been doing this so long, I don't remember a ton of it because this stuff just goes in one eyeball, not the other these days. But do you feel like they were leaning too much? Do you think in this series, let's put it this way, do you think in this series they lean too much on the sci-fi stuff without really giving it a good story to hang it on?
Yeah, they're too obsessed with flying cars and laser beams and not thinking enough about true plot. I think that's fair, you know? And it's
Yeah,
frustrating
because
because
I
you can
feel
do
like
both.
you've
Like the VR thing, you get a
right.
great VR visual, you got people wanting to escape their problems. Like, that's two birds with one stone. But when you focus too much on the gimmick of the sci-fi element, you don't put any, like the mutant dog at the end. It's just a distraction, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think at least in the first season you had stuff like the Golem episode
Yeah,
where they took the sci-fi aspect and kind of tied that into this antisocial kid
yeah.
who wanted revenge on people, which was really
That's a
interesting.
great example.
However,
Yeah.
however, on the other side, this season we did get chainsaw knees, so I feel like I can only complain so much.
Yep. Someday you'll have to bring him back, man. One bad day,
Oh,
chainsaw knee.
absolutely, absolutely, chainsaw knees is coming back. This is why no one at DC Comics will call me back because I keep leading with, "Hey, you guys have this great character that nobody's doing anything with."
Yeah. And I'm not sure if I want to go back to DC anytime soon.
Yeah.
If anyone listening wants to get into some inside baseball, but if you're a regular listener, you heard me complain about the lack of marketing, confusion, publishing level, and sales are down. My book is this huge hit, but I feel very alone. Um, like I don't get invited to the parties and the meetings and red carpet events and stuff. Uh, I was watching that it's a documentary on DC comics on HBO. I forget what it's called. It's only 3 episodes, and it's okay. But all these interviews, all these documentaries. Oh, I talked about this last episode where I'm like, man, when do these things
Oh
get
yeah, yeah.
filmed, and why am I always missing? And I joked that maybe it's because I shoot from the hip, and I don't always say the right thing, or I don't know. My sense of humor wouldn't like. Um, but yeah, it does hurt a little bit when it's like, man, my money makes you guys so much. My book makes you guys so much money. Why can't you reach out, make me feel a little bit more needed, included in some of these decisions? I feel like I've forced this book on you. You're all grateful for it, but because I'm sort of a lone wolf, because I don't have an inker, I don't have a writer except for me, so I don't really need a lot of maintenance, so it leaves me under the
Mhm.
radar, which is a good and bad thing. It's great getting creative stuff done, but it's bad because it's a little bit lonely. Um,
Right.
and I don't want to complain about PC giving me the keys to the kingdom. Of course they did. But yeah, some of the stuff just bums me out. So taking a break to do Zorro and the stuff that we're gearing up for the Kickstarter and then the direct market launch. We're gonna get Adam Hughes variant covers, Ryan Sook, all kinds of big names. I tried to get Frank Miller to do a variant, but I haven't heard back yet. But I think I'm going to be making more money on Zorro per page. Um, and when I do a following book with you called The Last Driver, I don't know what that's gonna make, but pretty sure it'll be comparable to Batman. So I'm thinking like, man, do I really want to go back to DC? I know I set up this
Sure.
Superman thing, but sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, oh, that's a if you never go back, that's a great fuck you to end on.
Yeah, I mean, my plan was the fuck you book would be the next one where I set up the Justice League and then I just end it. You know,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
like ending a book with the reader really wanting is a great thing. I mean, you want to definitely satisfy the stuff you set up in the book, but having a really
Right.
big tease at the end is obviously huge for readers to come back. Um, but I don't know, man. I mean, there's also this fear, like if I step away from Batman for too long, when I come back, no one's gonna care, you know? Whereas
Mm,
having, making them spaced closer together is better because you don't get forgotten as much. Not that I'm just disappearing from comics. Obviously, I'm still doing Zorro and some other stuff, but I don't know. It's just a lot of things floating through my head lately.
Yeah. Well, I feel like generally when someone has a pretty big run and then steps away, when they come back, it's usually, what's the word? I don't feel like they get generally forgotten at all. It usually seems to be something that people are excited about.
Well, it so I feel like yes and no. Um,
Mm-hmm.
when Fiona Staples and Ryan last when they stepped away from Saga, it was supposed to be like a 6 month or a year gap, and it ended up being 3 years at least. Um,
Oh wow,
and the sales on the floppies are just not what they used to be. Now, granted, the
really?
industry is just different now. Sales are sort of lower overall, but I'm curious when this new volume of Saga comes out, that's on shelves at bookstores, if that will sell just as well as everything else, you know?
Yeah,
Because I think Saga made most of his money just in trades, which makes sense. Um,
right.
Brian K. Vaughan, sorry, that's the writer. Sorry, Brian.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, comics is a very much like there's not a lot of loyalty in comics. It's very much what have you done for me lately? And if you're
Sure.
valuable, it means you have to have done something valuable in the past 6 months. If you take a year off comics completely, I feel like you lose 50% of your readers. If you take 2 years off, you've lost 90% of them.
Yeah. Not honestly, not even just readers, but people that you know in the
Yeah,
industry, frankly. Like even for me, I've after the apprenticeship, which if you can believe it is going to be 10 years next year.
ugh,
Um yeah. I pretty quickly did 3
yeah,
books for Oni, for Waxwork, and for
yeah,
IDW. And taking out Waxwork because they're more of a record company and aren't keyed into the comic
yeah,
stuff. Uh, since after I finished, and I also did some other stuff. I worked at Boom. I did some WWE stuff, and I did some covers and whatnot. And then I did Bloody Hell, and in the 2 years it took me to do Bloody Hell, basically everyone that I knew at all the companies got fired or like left. So it's
yeah,
like any connections editorial connections I had at these companies, they're all
yeah,
gone. And so there's a certain level of like, all right, I mean, is this back to zero now? Do I now need to go and start introducing myself to people again? Like what's the and it's not just I think this happens to everybody because like comics, I think the higher ups turn
yeah,
over so quickly, and sometimes it happens in the middle of books. I've heard stories of people who are doing books, they change editorial in the middle, and then they cancel the
yeah.
book or whatever. It's it's crazy
You
stuff.
know, that's an excellent point. And I think the thing that it makes me think about is the most reliable people that are going to be important to your career are going to be your readers, obviously, and the employees of
Mm-hmm.
comic book shops. Um, I
Yeah,
think that the guy who's making not a lot of money working in a comic shop who's just really good at customers putting labeling in boxes, whatever it is, that guy, if he's on board with your book, I know a lot of people like that who love pushing White Knight because they can sell the hell out of it. Those people probably have their jobs longer than the average editor in comics do.
mm-hmm.
So if you're really touching people in the right way and really creating a following, it sort of doesn't matter who the editors are. But I guess I should say it shouldn't matter because the people that are really fans of yours are in comic book shops, and a lot of them aren't going anywhere. Like they're true believers. Whereas a lot of the creatives that you work with, or even the editors, get shuffled through in and out like crazy. But obviously, you need to get through that first barrier to get to the shops. So yeah, I don't know. Just sort of thinking out
Yeah.
loud.
Yeah, it's a strange industry. It's similar. I feel like it's similar to movies in that sense, where it's like the heads of studios change so frequently, and people you're talking to about one thing
Yeah,
just leave, and then your project's dead. And I don't know if you heard about what's going on at IDW, where
yeah,
their originals, uh, what's the word I'm looking for?
and they were canceled.
Yeah, basically. And so everything that was in production, it seems like they just killed,
Yep.
um, which is it's wild. I don't know what's going on if they're going to keep doing that stuff, but it sounds like they're turning back towards more licensed stuff. It's frustrating
Yeah.
because these companies, the companies and the people making the books, right? They want to be able to tell these new stories, but like cultivating that stuff takes time, and if you don't get the support from the people who are giving you the money to create these
Mm-hmm.
books, I don't mean the editor. I mean like hire the editorial.
Yeah.
Then it's like, yeah, it's really tough to make an impression if you don't have the support of the company that's asking you to
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, I have a lot of personal feelings about IDW. Um, I knew Chris Ryall, who was a big editor there for many years, did
Mm-hmm.
a Star Trek book called Borg. It's the one shot that was really fun. Um, I've always liked them. I like the idea of them. But when my editor Mark Doyle left at DC, Mark started Black Label, and then Maggie left, my personal editor, White Knight. Both of them got me started doing my own Batman stuff. So even though I don't talk to them very often, if they're listening, I really can't praise them enough. They both went to
Mm.
IDW, and uh, Maggie when she was editing the entire White Knight line, she was still an associate editor. Like she wasn't even promoted to a normal editor, so she probably wasn't making that much money.
Oh wow.
So when
Yeah.
she left to go to IDW, like part of me felt like, yeah, if you're not being respected at DC, then you should leave. No offense to DC. Obviously, I've done well there, but they have a blind spot. She's caught in it. You should go. And when she went to IDW, I was like, wait a minute, that's a sinking ship because they're in debt. There's no rudder. I mean, I know that they went over there thinking that they could maybe try to turn IDW into Vertigo and reinvent it or something. There's this idea when you hire an editor like Mark Doyle, who has all these connections like me and Scott Snyder, you think, well, Mark is going to bring a lot of his friends over to IDW, but I didn't do anything for IDW, and I don't know if Scott did. Um, so I was like worried for Maggie, like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Mm.
I don't think she really wanted to, was interested in hearing too much, and I don't blame her, honestly, and it's none of my business.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, she moved, got like a double promotion. She went from being an associate editor to group editor, which is two promotions. Great. But now at the
Mm.
same time, with every other publisher being in trouble, if your label is group editor, well, there's less positions available for that. And will you get the paycheck you deserve? Like you almost sort of um, worry for anyone who's advancing in right now inside the offices are you promoted so high that you're unhireable at this point? You know, it's
Right.
really
Yeah.
weird math going on right now. And obviously, I wish Maggie and Mark the best. I mean, Maggie's one of the best editors I've ever had. Period. Maybe the best, honestly. Um, so I hope it works out. But yeah, well, going through San Diego this year, I walked through the IDW booth. Um, and owning a booth space is like having a claim on real estate. Like you own a mine or an oil well. So you don't want to not use all of it because you might lose it. So they put up some stuff there, but it was very empty. It's huge amount of square footage. I didn't see very many comics at all
Mm.
there, and it's like, did you guys just throw this together because you didn't want to lose your space? I mean, what's happening here? So I don't know. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of these strange indicators of where the industry is at right now.
Yeah. There's definitely some growing pains happening. In what direction, I don't know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I think.
I've
Go
heard
ahead.
that. Oh, I was just gonna say I've heard something similar in the science industry as well, where there was a lot of people for a while. I don't know if it's still happening as much, but where a lot of people were staying in school to get their PhD, and then when they were coming out to find jobs, they couldn't get hired because they were too qualified for the jobs that were
Hmm.
available. Um, I don't know if that's happening as much, but it was for a
Yeah.
while. But it's the same kind of thing where it's like you've spent your time for one for you get to a certain point that you've been trying to
Yeah.
achieve, but does that end up hurting you when you have to now pivot and move? And it's a tough thing that sucks to think about,
Yeah.
because you'd hope that it would be a constant stair stepping up instead of stair stepping down.
Right. Yeah, it's like you spend all this money going to college and you have all these huge degrees. And you show up in publishing ready to kick ass, but the industry is not as healthy as you thought it was, and getting hired is not as easy as you want it to be. And congratulations on your triple degree, but you're unhireable because you require more money now to pay off college, So you're gonna just
Right.
find another
Right.
industry that's connected, but not comics or not publishing. It's
Yeah.
yeah, that's the sort of the problem with art school or any kind of course that teaches you comics is they overpromise you. Like the enthusiasm level in college for comics is probably amazing. But when you arrive, like we said last, it's like Maximus getting home and seeing his dead wife hanging from a door jamb. Like what the hell? I was so pumped for this. What is this smoking ruin of this industry that what did you guys do while I was gone? Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been
Yep.
me being a broken record for 20 years now. Like the problems I encounter in comics, it's not necessarily an individual person that annoys me or is a roadblock, because people filter in and out all the time. Like if you don't like someone in the industry, they're probably going to be gone within 4 years because if you can't make money,
Right.
then the industry is going to kick you out. You're going to find reason to move on. So I try not to let that stuff bother
Yeah.
me. But the annoying thing that just keeps following me is competence. People maybe they're not being paid enough, so they aren't putting in their A effort, or maybe they're overloaded and they
Mm-hmm.
can't put in as much work per project. Like that's the villain that's always on my shoulder in comics, and it's just constantly like me throwing my hands in the air and being like, "What the hell?" you know? And I'm sure I dip into
Right.
this talking point a lot on this podcast, so I won't do it again. Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yeah. The only thing I can really speak to as far as that goes is I have worked with some great
Yeah,
people. Um, and a lot of them I can't figure out why they are not working at a higher level, if that
yeah,
makes sense. Like I've worked with some people who are independent, whatever their position happens to be, editorial independent editors who are fantastic, and I don't know why they're not working for Marvel or DC or something if they're putting in the effort that they seem to be
yeah.
putting in for not that, for um, independent or freelancing editorial jobs and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe it's strange because the people, they're out there, and why they're not more prominently positioned. I don't know if it's just the nature of the business and there only being so many
Are
spots,
you talking
but
about creators or employees of companies?
like basically
Okay.
editorial down. So like great
Yeah.
editors, letterers, colorists, et cetera, et cetera. I've worked with really great people who seem to only have can't seem to get past a certain uh,
Right.
ceiling, and I don't know why. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's always interesting. Um, I've hired a lot of artists to do different variant covers over the years. Um, and some of them are people who were big in the 80s. And now the word is on the street is, oh, this guy's amazing. Why can't he get work? So I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll hire him to do covers. So I do. And then guy can't use email very well. He's slow. I gotta write him 3 times. Like he doesn't
Mm-hmm.
seem to be trying to get a lot of work anymore. And granted, some of these guys are in their 50s and 60s and 70s, but there's a reason why some of them sort of disappear. I think it has to do with age and their commitment level, um, and their
Sure.
slow speed, and not their drawing speed. It's like how quickly do they respond to you? Can they fit this in their schedule? Blah blah blah. Like I thought it would be easier to scoop up a bunch of really talented guys from the 80s, but and in theory it should work, but when you actually deal with them one on one, a lot of them are like it's like, "Oh, this is why you're not getting hired as much." It's kind of your fault too, buddy.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. It's the business is going to change, and eventually it's going to be you and me who aren't getting hired because we don't know how to use thought mail or whatever.
Thought mail. Oh man. I wrote a this is why I got off social media. Someone accused me of being racist the other day. It's so stupid. I wrote this this list on Instagram, stories, so it gets deleted in 24 hours. Probably the safest place for a lot of my comments. And I wrote a list of things I was right about in the industry and the things I was wrong about, because I try to keep it real. And first thing I was right about was eventually publishers will go overseas to hire cheap talent, which is a fact that is happening. And 99% of the comments are like, oh yeah, good job. Thank you for being honest, blah, blah, blah. And one person wrote, this is really insulting to everyone overseas, also kind of racist. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I didn't engage this person. And I was like, oh yeah, this is why I'm off Twitter. Because for an hour now, I'm thinking, should I respond to this person I don't know? And it starts eating away at you, and you're not sleeping as well. It's like so stupid how this shit that infects you. And they started getting dogpiled on by people who were like, are you nuts? Like, clearly this isn't racist. Like, it's probably not cool that people are being underpaid overseas. And if anything, this is like promoting the idea that everyone should be paid more no matter what country you're in. And just because you're in a different country doesn't mean you're a different race. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to attack that stupid argument. And I also thought, if I actually thought someone said something racist, I'd probably just give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they didn't mean it, But to like go in hard online and attack someone that you think is being racist, I don't know. It just shows that you're not trying to have an honest conversation. It's like you're looking to find someone to dunk on. And no amount of my good response to you is possibly going to win you over. It's just going to be a fight in the schoolyard, and everyone's just going to want to start cheering,
Yeah, I think especially with a comment like that, I think it requires a lot of mental backflipping to get to the point where you would perceive it being racist. So,
and I don't know the race or gender of this person who wrote, to be honest.
And please, it's called X now, Sean.
It's
not Twitter anymore.
Man, I was a defender of Elon for a while, and I had to pull out of that the last few months. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him now.
Yeah, he's something. Anyway.
Yeah.
I think that's a good place to end it.
Yep.
We've finished up season 2. Thank you guys for joining us. I was debating whether we should wait and do Return of the Joker until after we finish the series, but chronologically, Return of the Joker does come out after season 2. So I think we're going to do that next. So we're going to take a bit of a break.
Yep.
Then we're going to come back and we'll do Return of the Joker, which, frankly, I don't know if that's going to kill our enthusiasm for doing the rest of the series, because Return of the Joker is
a 5 out of 5.
Kind of the high point. No, I know that. I know. Okay. But what I'm saying is, like, I don't know if we're going to watch that and go, like, I mean, what are we going to get out of this show that we haven't gotten out of Return of the Joker?
So if we move the grail that is Return of the Joker to the end of the trail here, which is after season 3, that's going to motivate us to keep trudging through this desert.
Maybe. However, I will say there are only 13 episodes in season 3, and so that's only we're going to do as I said before, we're going to do the final episode, and we're going to do the Justice League Coda episode.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's 14, so it'll be 7 episodes for us
to
get through season 3. So I think that's no problem.
Yeah, okay, that's not so bad.
But that's the plan moving forward, and then after Batman Beyond, we'll see where the winds take us.
Cool, man.
But thank you guys for listening as always.
Yeah, thank you, Clay.
Thank you, Sean, for joining me. Thank you, and we will see you guys next time.